Hello and welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to give you some tips of hopefully getting better, smoother landings in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 and 2024 with an airliner. Now, there are many different types of airliners out there, and each one has its own unique way of trying to land the plane on the ground successfully and smoothly. So keep that in mind as we go through this video. Let's dive in. Let's start at the very beginning, and that is, where do you land? Well, here's your runway, and as you see, there are all kinds of marking on there. You see these two big blocks? That's the landing touchdown zone. So that is where you're trying to get the back wheels to land on the runway first. And that's the optimal location to land. Now, you see that dotted line in the middle? Well, of course, that's the center line. So you want to get the plane nose right in the middle. Let's take a look at the next thing, which is PAPI light. Now, PAPI lights are critical because they're going to tell you how high or low you are on the visual approach. The ideal way is to have 2 white, 2 red. That tells you you're all right. If you have 4 white, you're too high. If you have 1 red, you're slightly high. If you have 3 red, you are slightly low. And if you have 4 red, you are really low. Now let's look in the cockpit. As you see, this is a Boeing 737. And here are the lines for the flight director. That's the arrow. Think of it as if you're looking down a scope. This is what you're aiming for. You want to make sure you're lined up with that magenta cross right there. On the right of it, you're going to see that pink diamond, and it's moving up or down. Now, what that means is if it's up, it means you want to bring that nose up just a little bit so you capture where the glide slope is. If it's low, it means you want to bring that nose a little bit down to get right on path. And those are crucial tools to use, whether you're doing a visual or a full ILS approach. Keep in mind that every aircraft is going to handle a little bit differently, from Boeings to Airbuses, where Boeings will be more hands-on on the approach, where you may have to move the yoke a lot more to left, right, up, and down, whereas an Airbus is fly-by-wire, which means that you'll have to use little input. Now, with that said, Airbuses can be different between each other. For example, the 319 is one of the smaller Airbuses out there, which means that when you go in for your flare, you don't have to be as aggressive. Whereas with, let's say, an A321, or even in this one, the 350, you do have to be cautious on how you come in for that flare. Some aircrafts like the CRJ do not have an auto throttle, which means you do have to control the throttle on the approach. So, again, giving it too much power, you may start to nose up. Reducing that power, the nose will go down. So you will have to control the yoke based on whatever input you give for the throttle. And finally, let's close this video out with a full approach using an Airbus A319 with my narration of what I'm looking at when I come in for the approach. Alright, localizer's been captured on this approach, and so the plane is swinging on over to the left. That is beautiful and grand. We're going to go ahead and activate our LS now so we can see our distance, which is about 10 nautical miles, and go ahead and activate the glide slope. So right now we don't have glide slope captured. We do now. It's green, so that's great. 10 nautical miles out is where I normally like to go flaps 1 for this approach. Now this is going to be a little bit of a windy approach coming into Tampa. Just a slight headwind coming from our right. And what I like to do is pretty close to about 6 nautical miles is where I'll bring out that gear. And just depending on how fast we're going, I might take it out a little sooner. So we are going a little fast on this approach. We're going to bring it out right about now. And this will help slow down the plane as we come into this approach into Tampa. Now as you get lower, sometimes the instruments get a little bit tougher to see. So we're going to go ahead and drop down that brightness just a little bit. And we're going to be able to see the airport momentarily right ahead of us here. Now we're kind of somewhat of a little crab coming into this arrival, just to offset that wind. Alright, so we are just under 8 nautical miles out from landing at this point. You can see the wind is shifting a little bit to the left of us here. It's kind of cool as you see that happening as we come in straight. You know, I'm watching this cell right here. It's slowly kind of moving over here to this side. One of the cool features of flight simming is you can see so much detail, especially with Microsoft Flight Sim. Bring up that brightness a little bit on the screen. Alright, we're going flaps 2. We're going to do a full flaps 4 arrival here. So anytime you come in for an approach, obviously you need to make sure you set your ILS if you do have that. It's a nice backup instrument if you are doing a visual landing. And we're under 6 now, so we're going 3 flaps. Watching that speed, it's dropping back down. Plane stabilizing. And we're going to go full flaps now. Alright, so we're almost at 5 nautical miles, so I'm going to go ahead and prepare for autopilot off. I can see runway, we have nice visual there. And we look really good on the approach here. Glide slope's right within it. Pappies, you can barely see them, but the 2 white, 2 red means we're right on it. Speed's looking good. Altitude's being autopilot's being turned off. So now what I'm focusing on is the instruments mostly. So I'm watching this little diamond here. That diamond's in the purple. Or sorry, that purple is within the line there, this yellow line. That means we're right on the glide slope. So we're just going to monitor that. The autopilot's going to control the speed, so we don't have to worry about that in the Phoenix or the Airbus plane here. And now what I'm doing is just correcting a little bit to the left because the wind's pushing us, but don't overcorrect it because, again, we do have a little bit of a shift of that wind. Alright, that diamond's coming up a little high, so we're going to go ahead and readjust. We're going to bring that nose up just a little bit and get us right back on approach. Okay, again, a little low again, so we're going to bring up that nose just a little bit more. As the wind hits the top of the nose, it's going to reduce the speed. So we're going to try to maintain the altitude that we need. Again, we're following the diamond, and now we're looking at pappies. Alright, so we're bringing that nose down a little bit more. All looking grand. We're going to get back onto the approach here. We're going to follow the flight director, make sure we're right in the center there. And we're looking really, really good on this approach. 2 red, 2 white, looking really good still. Bring that nose down a little bit. And then bring it back up. Again, this plane is a fly-by-wire, so it will auto-adjust. Wherever you stick it, it's where it's going to stick it. Sounds kind of weird saying that, but that's how it works with this plane. Alright, we got 2 red now, but we're really good on this approach. I like how we're looking. I'm going to maintain where we are. I'm just going to correct a little bit over to the left. I'm watching the landing zone. There's a 100 call, we're landing. There's a 20, I wait a little bit more, we hear it. Bring down the power, hold back the nose. There's our touchdown. And throttle's all full back, reversers are coming out, let it stabilize. And there's a nice, perfect centerline landing here in Tampa. So hopefully this video has helped you a little bit with improving your landings in an airliner with Microsoft Flight Sim. It's an incredible challenge at sometimes to make things happen within the sim, and obviously weather and different aircrafts are going to make things even more unique. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you for the next video. Take care.